And we're getting ready to speak to our labor correspondent, Daniel Poku, who will be having a chat with lead government negotiator and CEO of Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, George Smith Graham. And the issue is about a 60% increase in national service allowance. And as government workers also debate the issue and they want equal salary uprise to the 60%, they are now getting 12.5% pay rise now. And Daniel, if you can join us, we're ready for you.
Increases, base pay increases for public sector workers on the single spine pay policy. At that negotiations, both stakeholders agreed to a 12% increment for all public sector workers, which is supposed to start January 2017. Now, just some few days to January 2017, another batch of increment or increases have been given to personnel from the National Service Secretariat. We are currently with the Chief Executive Officer or the Chief High Priest of Fair and Salaries Commission to delve deeply into the reasons for doing the increment for the National Service personnel. Already, some labor unions are worried that they have been shortchanged. Good evening, Mr. Graham.
Good evening.
Now, Mr. Graham, have you shortchanged other public sector workers?
I'm not sure exactly what you mean.
With regard to the increase you have given to the national service personnel, 60% increase.
Absolutely not. I think it is important that we explain the situation and the circumstances that led to the increases. You recall that in 2010, the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission signed an agreement with organized labor, establishing the Public Services Joint Standing Negotiation Committee. The Memorandum of Understanding indicated that we should always conclude negotiations before the budget is ready. We struggled meeting this deadline, but employers were not happy. Employers always felt that the slippages in the wages was always problematic, and it was important that government works very hard to make sure we conclude negotiation before budget is ready. And so you recall that in 2016, this current 2016 base pay was concluded in 2015. So we're able to budget for it before the beginning of the year. Then in 2017, we also concluded in in September, so that we'll be able to take care of it in the budget before the year 2016. And the negotiations came to 16.5% on the single span, 12.5%. Now, if we say we've shortchanged as against the national service personnel, then it means that the people don't understand exactly what went into the determination of the national service personnel allowance. The national service personnel sent recommendations to government in July. Minister of Finance brought those recommendations to Fair Wages and Salaries Commission in October. Now, when we got the allowance, there's always a relationship between the graduate salary in the public service and that of the national service. There has always been a relationship. For some time now, when we got the letter, we realized that that relationship has totally been destroyed, and there was no relationship between the single spine salary, not the single spine, public sector salary, and that of the national service. And so we ran various scenarios. And we ran scenarios from 30% to about 60–70% of the graduate salary on the single spine. Now, at the end of the day, we decided to grant the 40% of the graduate salary on the single spine to the national service personnel, and for very good reasons. One of the reasons is that the 40% on the single spine graduate salary on the single spine we felt was equitable, especially if you consider the fact that the trainee allowance for nurses was over 500 Ghana cedis. It's around 520 Ghana cedis. Now, some of the question is that should the trainee allowance be higher than that of a national service personnel? And again, what should be the relationship that should exist between the public sector graduate salary and that of the national service personnel? And it's for that reason that we came to the 40% of the salary of the graduate salary on the single spine to that of the national service personnel. so that we can have a permanent relationship between the salary of a graduate in the public service and that of the national service personnel. And that is what virtually went into the determination of the allowance for the national service personnel.
Mr. The argument here is that, is it prudent to do the increment now, looking at what you are giving to the public sector workers, that implement is supposed to start from January next year? Is it prudent to have done the increment now?
Now, Fair Wages recommended that the increase should be done in 2017, and it's for good reason.
Why?
We always want to avoid a slippage in the budget. The employers, which is the other partner in the tripartite, has always been worried about slippages. Now, if, for instance, we are given an approval in October, November, for national service personnel allowance, and we ask government to pay in 2016, what we virtually are doing is that we are going to create slippages again in the budget, the compensation budget of government and that of 2017. And so our recommendation is that it should be in 2017 so that we can make the necessary budgetary provisions for it in 2017. That is the only reason why the recommendation was that it should be paid in 2017.
Mr. Graham, it is not in the supplementary budget presented to Parliament, so how are you going to pay them?
Whether it's in the supplementary budget or not, at the end of the day, if we had given the approval and had said that it takes immediate effect, government would have paid now and pay in 2017 as well. Now, once we have decided, we've made a decision that it should be in 2017 budget, then the thinking is that it will be factored into the full budget of 2017. And so if even it's not in the supplementary budget, and the first 3 months it cannot be paid, the assumption is that appropriate budget allocation can be made for it in the full budget of 2017. And that is what we thought is the most prudent way of doing it, than to say if you take immediate effect, then we create slippages again in the compensation for the country. And we all bear the consequences. And I remember vividly how employers have always been on us, that those slippages in government compensation bill is creating problem for them as employed, because it is not allowing government to make the necessary payment to them, especially those that government owes. And so it was important that we make sure that we don't do anything that will continue creating slippages. And that's the reason why we negotiated the salary for 2017 early, so that we can budget for it, and at the same time make sure that it will be taken care of. The National Service Fund will be taking care of it, the 2017 budget.
Thank you very much, Mr. Graham. We just finished with Mr. Graham, who is the lead government negotiator with regard to negotiations on salaries for public sector workers. Over to you in the studio.